Back to the Unboxed broadcast. Today, Dr. Davis and I discuss why leaders should investigate their own families. We're ready to dive in. We're excited you're here. So stick around as we help you unbox the power and potential of your leadership.
I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and leadership coach. This is my co-host, R.P. Soriano. Soriano attended Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, worked in the financial industry, and was an international consultant before partnering with me to launch UnBoxed to Lead. Me? Well, I worked for over 20 years as a senior pastor and a community organizer. Then I retired and started a leaders peer support community called UnBoxed to Lead. Soriano and I have been friends since the early 90s, and with our varied experiences and expertise, we help leaders reach the next level in their leadership. So join us for the next few moments as we unbox the power and the potential of your relationships, your leadership, and your life.
All right, welcome back, one and all, wherever in the world you may be. I'm R.P. Soriano, coming to you from the Lion City of Singapore. And with me once again from the Mile High City of Denver in Colorado is Dr. Robert Davis, family and workplace relationship expert and author of Seasoned with Grace, God's Recipe for Healthy Family Communication, and the 12 Steps to Becoming an Unboxed Leader. How are you this week, my friend?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for asking. Feeling good.
That's good. That's good. I see you've got a brand new haircut, looking good, looking sharp. Is that a Christmas cut?
Here's something. No, I hope that I can slide back in the barbershop again before Christmas.
For
We'll
sure,
see.
for sure. Well, I gotta tell you, it's a good, nice cut because we are thousands and thousands of miles away, but yet I can see in the camera that you're looking as Outcast says, so fresh and so clean.
And you mentioned Christmas. This is going to air actually December the 20th, 5 days before Christmas, because we really want to help families to get ready for Christmas and family time. So what a better subject for us to. So hopefully by the time Christmas actually rolls around, I would have been to the barbershop one more time.
All right. Well, good. Well, then it will definitely be the most wonderful time of the year. So, I just want to remind everyone to please like, share, and subscribe to the broadcast. Also, be sure to follow all of our social pages: Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. Also, visit our blog page at www.unboxedtolead.com. There, you can access past episodes of our broadcasts, also see webinars, and you can also sign up for our newsletter so you never miss out on any of the latest content or specials that we may offer for our services. I also want to remind everyone about something that we talked about last week to visit our website and learn more about the BIPOC Executive Directors Leaders Peer Support Community Scholarship. So, thanks to our partners and sponsors, we have 20 scholarships available for BIPOC executive directors of nonprofit and or community organizations to be a part of this program. The scholarship covers the full cost of the program. The program is designed to address the unique challenges that BIPOC leaders and their organizations face. This program seeks to provide equity through learning, coaching, support, growth, and it gives BIPOC leaders access to resources they may otherwise not be able to access. So, if you're a BIPOC leader of a nonprofit or community organization, or you know someone who is, be sure to visit and share this website or share the website link www.unboxedtolead.com to learn more and to apply. Also, if you're an organization that would like to sponsor this program so that we can make more seats available, please email us at scholarship@unboxedtolead.com. That's scholarship@unboxedtolead.com, or send us a message through one of our social media channels. So today we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to divide our show into a bit of theory and practice, or half theory, half practice. So for the theory side, we're going to discuss why leaders should investigate their own family. And then, as a practical exercise, Dr. Davis is going to strap me in against my will to the electric chair here, and he's going to conduct an abbreviated interview with me to demonstrate how this investigation actually looks. So let's dive in. Dr. Davis, at Unboxed, we talk a lot about the importance of working on your family relationships as a way of becoming a stronger leader. Now, this is not a conventional approach to leadership development. So, my question is, why should leaders who are paid to lead the people in their organizations spend time developing their leadership abilities by working to improve their family relationships?
Man, that's the heart of the question. I appreciate it, Raphael. One of the people that I often reference is Roberta Gilbert. She did a series called Extraordinary Leadership, and that series is based off of the first book in the series, which is Extraordinary Leadership. And another book that I recommend from that series is Extraordinary Relationships. Which deals more with the family relationships. But let me go back to the book Extraordinary Leadership. And this is what Dr. Gilbert says. She says, it is in family relationships that all the principles and much of the learning for extraordinary leadership resides. So, if a leader can begin to understand his or her family, that leader can understand any human system. That complex organism, the organization, can begin to make sense, and one can find a way to conduct oneself according to observed and tested principles that work towards better functioning of both the self and the organization. So let me just unpack that statement a little bit here. Family relationships are the most significant and emotionally impactful. And I've talked about this before, but sometimes repetition deepens the impression. When you're born into this world, you are born as vulnerable and as dependent as you can possibly be. Human babies are some of the most vulnerable and dependent infants in the entire, out of all the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
And so those relationships that we form with our mother, our father, our siblings, and our guardians are the most important because they're the ones that we're most dependent upon. Those are the ones that we're most fused with. So if we can become calm and thoughtful and observant in our family relationships, the ones that have the greatest impact upon us, our family relationships, the one that we're most dependent on, our family relationships, the ones that have had the most significance in our life, our family relationships. If we can become calm in those relationships, then we can be thoughtful, we can be calm, we can be strategic in any relationship that we're a part of. So that's why we start at the home. We start where, and I know this kind of sounds crazy, you actually start where it is the most difficult and then transition to where it gets easier. I know that typically you start where it's easier and go to where it's more difficult. We do it just the opposite at Unboxed because it has the greatest impact. Start where it's most impactful, start where it's most significant, and then work into the other type of relationships.
Can you talk a little bit more about the idea of being calm and thoughtful and observant, and how that, and again, talk a little bit more about how that ties in to the family, from transitioning from family to workplace?
Yeah. The more calm, thoughtful, and observant we can become, the easier it is for us to gain perspective and clarity. It's just very difficult to think well when you are emotional and when you are anxious. That's just the reality of it. So, calmness opens the door for reflection. And I know I'm getting into your wheelhouse here, Raphael, but when we talk about mindfulness, we're talking about getting to a place of calm, or at least calm enough where you can actually begin to think, where you can actually begin to reflect, where you can actually begin to focus. And so when we can become calm enough, it opens the door for reflection, which leads to better questions. And anyone who knows that leadership is knowing the right questions to ask, knowing the right things to research and to investigate. If a
Mm.
leader is looking to merge with another business or to acquire another business, they don't want to be researching how to make chocolate chip cookies. That's a waste of their time. They want to be
Yeah.
researching what the most important thing. But when you are under a lot of stress and anxiety, I know this sounds crazy, but what ends up happening is you are so discombobulated and so twisted around that you often spend your energies investigating and working on things that are non-consequential, unimportant, if you will. So, but when you can get to a calm and thoughtful place, it allows you to be more conscientious and more intentional about formulating the right questions and investigating the right things. And if you can learn to ask the right questions regarding family relationships, you can master that skill in every area of your leadership. When we are anxious or unskilled, we don't know what type of questions to ask that will actually lead to developing better strategies for improving relationships. But if we start by learning to ask the right questions, that's what I want. If we get calm enough that we can ask the right questions in the most emotionally impactful relationships, which again, as I shared before, is the family relationship. If I can get to a place where I can ask the right questions in the family relationship, then guess what? We can master the skill of asking the right question in every relationship and in every situation.
Okay, so I'm seeing the connection here. It's starting to become crystal clear into focus, and I'm sure that anyone listening to this, I'm wondering if they're having the same uh, feeling of anxiety starting to bubble up in them the way it's bubbling up in me. Just the idea of thinking that, just as you said, this is the family relationships can be the most intense, and so starting there and learning how to approach it in a calm and real and you know unanxious state gets us to the point where we can start asking the right questions. And I can see how that would be very important in a very dynamic family situation. But again, I mean, my heart is just starting to flutter a little bit just at the thought of that. And I'm wondering if people listening are hearing that as well, thinking, "Oh, can't we just skip that part and just get right
Yeah.
into the leadership?" But just as you said, let's start with the hardest mountain first, and get that out of the way, and then we can the rest of them will seem a little bit will not be as challenging. So I want to stay there for a second,
And let me just let me, let
because
me just let me just push back for just 1 second, not to push back and not to be
no, go ahead.
argumentative, but I don't want to use the term non-anxious or unanxious. What I
Okay,
want to use the term is less anxious because
okay,
there's anxiety around us at all times.
right,
Just by being a human being, there's
yeah.
anxiety around us at all times because we desire to stay alive. And so there is that anxiety that automatically is there. But when we can manage it and where it does not dominate our
Mm.
functioning and our thinking, that's where we want to be. So it's not being non anxious, it's being less anxious. And I just wanted to give that clarity real quick.
I'm glad you did, because man, we could if we could bottle that, we'd never work another day in our life.
Yeah.
Bottling the ability to be non-anxious, so less anxious
That's why
is a
drug
much more
dealers
preferred.
That's why
That's
drug dealers make so much money because they have found an illegal way to bottle less anxiety. And people are like, hey, I'll pay whatever it takes.
I'll pay
Help me
whatever
to
it
feel
takes.
like that again.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So so we're talking about being less anxious and calm, so we can get to the point where we're asking the right questions.
Yeah.
So, and I hear this a lot about asking the right questions, but what I feel like I'm hearing you say is that there's kind of a formula to this. That
Yeah.
being calm is certainly a key part, but there's actually a formula when it comes to asking the right questions. Am I right in
Yeah.
assuming that?
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head because and I want to just say this. This is one of the things that we are intentional about doing at Unbox to Lead is helping leaders within their most important relationships, which is their family relationships, and then their secondary relationships, which are their workplace relationships, etc. Is really to help them to gain the skill set of asking the right questions. So let me share this to help you to understand what I'm talking about. There are two types of family relationship questions: factual questions and emotional process questions. It's been my experience that if leaders work on developing and answering the factual questions, it becomes easier to develop and to answer the emotional process questions. So, and this isn't anything. Great leaders always start off with the factual questions. So again, if
Okay.
they're looking to acquire another business or to merge with another business, they want to know all of the facts before they go to their gut and that instinctive part. They first want to know all of the facts. They want to know what are the finances, what is the product, what is the makeup of the company, what is the and they want to. And I'm not a business person, but all of those questions that are the very first questions that you ask before you even buy a stock. When a stock shows up, before you buy it, you have certain questions you're supposed to ask. And there's questions that you ask before you merge it. And that's important because factual questions are so important. And oftentimes in relationships, because relationships have a tendency to bring a certain level of emotion into it, and dare I say, even can bring a certain level of anxiety into it. Oftentimes we transition from factual and we start talking about, well, I feel. And we
I
get
see.
caught up into this feeling world rather than stopping and saying, okay, it's nothing wrong with your feelings, nothing wrong with your emotions. But before that, you really do need to know what the facts are and to become clear as a leader on what the facts are. So when we talk about factual questions, we're talking about what are the most emotionally intense relationship in my family. Emotional process, that's a factual question that you can
Okay.
ask yourself. What
Okay.
are the most emotionally intense relationships in my family? That's a factual question.
Okay.
So you know that I find myself getting most annoyed when I am with my cousin Johnny Boy. I
Who's
find
always
my
asking for money. He's always got a new
Yeah.
business that he's trying to run. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Man, listen, I'm telling you right now, man. This thing right here is a goal, man. I'm trying to get you in on the
It's a
front
gold
end.
mine.
Yeah, it's a goal, man. Everything's a goal, man. But then
Toothpaste
also,
that doesn't come in a tube.
and
That's just out there. You just take your toothpaste and put it on it. It's it's gonna be gangbusters.
man, Johnny boy, you always coming up with the good ones. Another question is, which one of my family members? This is a factual question. Which one of my family members? We're talking about the most emotional, maybe. Which one do I find to be more at peace around? That makes me laugh. That I look forward to seeing the most. When I go to family reunion, which one is the one that I'm the most desirable to see? That's a good thing, but it still is an emotional thing. So that's asking factual questions and other type of factual questions, especially when there's a disagreement. Getting the facts out is so very important. But then there are emotional process questions, and that is here's a good emotional process question. How do I foster a positive relationship with both family members without trying to fix their relationship, choosing sides, or distancing from them? And I guess I should have set it up a little bit better. So let's say, for instance, you have two family members that are always bickering with each other. An emotional process question would be so here's a factual question. Which of my family members have the most difficult time getting along with each other? That's factual. So
Maybe
that's
siblings, maybe your children, maybe your 2
yeah,
children
maybe your
is
children, it could
how
be
your
anybody.
2 kids in the
Uh,
house. Yeah.
yeah, so that's a factual question. So we're going to
Or
say
parents,
that
maybe your parents. Yeah.
yeah, so we're gonna say that it's Johnny Boy and Donnie Boy. Those two just
Okay.
can't seem to get along. Johnny Boy and Donnie Boy can't seem to get along to save their lives. So here's an emotional process question: how do I foster a positive relationship with both of these family members, Johnny Boy and Donnie Boy, without trying to fix their relationship, without choosing sides or distancing from them? Now we're talking about a process question. And then when I can get the factual question, these are the two who can't seem to get along to save their lives. Here's now a process question on what do I need to think about as it relates to being in relationship with these two individuals that just can't seem to get along to save their life. But see, if I'm unaware, and I'll just end on this, if I'm unaware of the factual aspect of my family relationships, it's more difficult to develop strategic questions for how I plan to relate within these realities.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that was a good nugget there, and I want to maybe we can try to dig for a little more gold. And if we can talk a little bit more, dive a little bit more into that part of the formula, the factual questions part, because our show today is about the leader investigating their family. So
Yeah.
that means there's going to be some family research and investigative questions. I think, as you've said this many times before, that the first part of any research project is to start by asking factual questions. So, talk a little
Exactly.
bit more about factual questions in this context.
Okay, I'm glad. I'm glad that we're starting with factual questions. I like to always make sure that I reference where I get certain quotes from because I don't like to plagiarize. There's a book called Your Mindful Compass, and in that book it says, "Thinking carefully is a leader's job. Research suggests that it takes close to 10,000 hours of thinking based practice to understand simple rule based systems like chess. 10,000 hours to really understand chess. Families are way more complicated than a game of chess. It takes a long time to recognize the formation of various patterns and what you might do to make more of an impact. Think about how long it takes to deeply understand our extended families, since the family's rules have usually never been written down or, in many cases, clarified. For leaders who want to become more authentic, principle centered leaders, the history of relationships tells them what they are up against and just where they might be able to find chances to become more skilled in altering old relationship patterns. So, again, when we talk about factual questions, to dig a little deeper, I want to now know more about the history. I want to know more about, the people involved. These are factual questions. I want to know more about the what, the where, the when, the who. When did the rift in the relationship start? Or when did the relationship become strong? Who was responsible for helping the family manage through this crisis? When, and notice I haven't asked any why questions. I'm asking factual questions, because when we start getting into the why questions, now you start getting more into opinions and stuff. First, let's gather all of the factual questions. Who, what, where, when. And when we get to know those things about our family, it really does help us to begin to really understand the big picture, and to really understand how about how process and stuff works.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from the quote that you just read and the way that you've summarized it, just to make sure that I'm still
Mhm.
that I'm still following here. When we're talking about these factual questions, you're talking about questions that allow you to, in the least anxious way possible, removing as much stress and emotion from the situation as possible. Just asking these factual questions so that you're talking about gathering information about family history, relationship patterns, family stories, etc. Is that accurate?
That's 100% accurate.
All
Yes.
right.
And one of the
Okay.
things that we do, at Unbox is we actually, again, we have a series of questions that everybody should know about their family, so that we actually can give you a set of questions that you can begin to research about your family. And matter of fact, let me throw in a little plug here. If you haven't signed up for our webinar series, make sure that you do that, because in our last webinar, we talked about the type of questions that you can ask. We didn't give all of them, but we gave several of them that'll be very beneficial. I would encourage you to check out our website, unboxedtolead.com, and sign up for the webinars.
All right. Great. All right. So before you put me in the hot seat, let me ask you one more question here. It's a softball question.
Okay.
I think I already know the answer to it, but let's just throw one up and see what you do with it. So,
Yeah.
besides becoming a better leader, are there any personal benefits from doing family research and discovering the facts about your your families?
Biggest and most important is you will be less cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's just, that's the number one thing, man. It really does help. And I'm gonna give there are several reasons. And what I want to
Mm,
do is I just want to give 5 reasons. I'm going to share 5 of those
okay.
reasons with you. We're going to throw them up on the screen real quick. Number one, the more we know about the facts of our families, we will become more aware of the difference between facts and people's feelings. Because a lot of times we base our opinions and thoughts about other family members based on opinions. But the more that we know facts, this happened, this happened, when it happened, where it happened, etc., then we can start to differentiate between facts and people's feelings. Number two, knowing more, and I said 5 is actually 4, I apologize. Number two, knowing more of the facts about our families allows us to know people for who they are, helping us to separate facts from fiction. And I know that's very similar to number one, but it helps us to separate facts from feelings. Number two, it helps us to separate facts from fiction and
I see.
gossip.
I see. I see.
Yeah,
I
from
see.
fiction and gossip. Number three, the more that we know about the facts of our families, the easier it is to relate to the different kinds of people that make up our families. So I had a cousin in that I actually haven't seen, and I've been trying to get in touch with certain segments of my family, but I haven't seen this cousin in at least 30 plus years. But this particular cousin, there's three of them, their mother was murdered in front of their eyes by their father. He took a butcher knife and he stabbed her to death right in front of them. At the time that the murder took place, the oldest one was about 12 and the youngest one was about 5. It was 3 boys. One of the little boys, the youngest one, he walked with braces on his legs because his father, in a rage, had broke both his legs. Now, these are factual statements that I'm making here. The significance of these factual statements is that helps me to gain a deeper insight about how they may relate. And I really wish that I was still in touch with them. I'm trying my best to get in touch with all my family, but that would help them to be able, help me to understand how they are, how they relate, what are the various challenges that they're up against, so that we can understand the different type of people that are in our family based on their history, their factual realities. And then number 4, here's the last one. The more we know about the facts of our families, and this kind of goes into the illustration I gave just a second ago, the deeper respect we will have for the struggles of our ancestors. As I've told you many times before, and I'm very unapologetic about this, I am very centered in trying to improve the African American community. And I make sure I tell people that because I want my children to eat doesn't mean I want yours to starve. And I will work with you to feed your children. But my number one priority is the enrichment, the growth, and the self-sufficiency of the African American community, especially descendants of enslaved Americans, because I am a descendant of enslaved Americans. And understanding the struggles that my ancestors had to go through, my grandfather who fought in World War II in a segregated military, understanding, that my grandfather's grandfather was a slave. So that means that I sat on the lap of a man who sat on the lap of a slave. Those type of things helps us to gain an appreciation. We live in a world where we're so quick to judge people. Oh, that person's a sellout. That person is not woke. That person is too woke. That person is whatever, without really understanding people. And if you want to, be a Twitter warrior or a Facebook fighter, be my guest. But when it comes to your family, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your posterity. You owe it to your ancestors to understand them better so that you can, in fact, have a better understanding of your family, to have a deeper respect for the struggles of your ancestors, and so that you can appreciate how you got here and chart a clearer course of where you would like to go. So those are the 4 reasons right there.
No, that's, I love it when you do this. The problem is I don't like it when it happens as we're recording the broadcast, because I start staring off into space. I'm thinking about what you're saying. I'm the impact is hitting me full force. And, it's not that I want to have a whole commentary about what you're saying, but I'd like to just kind of feel like this is the kind of time I need to just sit down and think and just take a pen and a pad and just start reflecting and thinking about all of these things. But we're not going to do that here. We got to keep on going with the show. So,
but I tell you what, we can do it, Raphael. We can do it for those who are part of the Unboxed to Lead community, because a lot of this information is also in our Unboxed to Learn curriculum.
Yeah.
And that does give you the chance to pause the video, to reflect, to think, to make telephone calls and ask family members questions to learn even more, and then to come back and unpause the video and watch it further and all that stuff. So we thought about that, and that's why we encourage folk to check us out.
Yeah, and not to labor too long on that, but I do like the way I like the approach. What you've talked about here, I think is very important. It's a small nugget, but it's so important, and that is start with the factual questions. Start there, get the facts, and then start with the move into the emotional process questions, so that you can be aware, present, mindful of what is actually happening. What happens when you ask these factual questions? What is happening to you emotionally as you start to kind of dig up things, and being able to identify that? I think that's the right process because I think a lot of us, speaking for myself, would love to know more about our families, but especially from those of us who have some history of some trauma in our families,
Yeah,
trying to go and dig into that can be extremely painful. And if you don't know how to approach it, you will eventually back up, or you'll just be too afraid to even go into it. But there is that hole, that lingering hole that tells us something is wrong. We've got to understand our family a little bit better so that we can understand ourselves, right? I think that's the whole
exactly.
crux of this. All right. So now that we've covered some theory, let's go ahead and take a shot at this practical side. You're going to do what you do best, and that is to safely facilitate what I have to admit is a slightly uncomfortable interview, given that it's going to be out there for the world to see. But this is an example of how our coaching works. It's an example of what you talked about the curriculum and how that works at Unboxed to Lead, which is discreet and private, safe, and all that good stuff. So it's not out there for everybody to see and to experience. So anyway, I'm in your capable hands. Go ahead and take it away.
Man, I feel like you so much that I'm about to start off by saying this. You are listening to Unboxed. I'm Robert Davis with Rafael Soriano, and we're so thankful that you've joined us. All right,
All right.
Rafael. I know I don't do it as good as you, but I try. I do my best.
That's all right. That's all right. There's a trick to it.
There's, there's some secret spices in the sauce.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a series of questions to begin looking at events in your family and your upbringing that shaped who you are and how you function in relationships, Raphael. At Unboxed, we have a series of questions we go through with our members, both during our coaching sessions as well as during the leaders support groups. And so today I'm just going to ask you a few of those questions. I mean, we have scores of questions. But of course, for time's sake, we're just going to grab a quick few and kind of go over them. So let me start it off. Was there anyone in your family that you had or have an open relationship with? And when I talk about an open relationship, I'm talking about a relationship in which uh, you felt comfortable sharing anything with that individual about what you thought, what your plans were, your feelings, etc. And they were a place where you could go and you know that you would be heard and listened to. And then open also means that you knew that they felt safe sharing with you as well, so that it was open and that it was also reciprocal. I know it's a pretty long question, but was there anyone in your family that you had or
Yeah.
have had an open relationship with? Go ahead.
Yeah. When I got this question, I was thinking more of my immediate, my wife, my, that family, not necessarily thinking about historically speaking. And so when I started to think about that, yes, that is, I do have family members that way. Uh, my My grandmother was that way. I have 3 uncles that I'm very close with, and same with them. Could talk to them about pretty much anything. They were always open to helping to guide me, and they took on a very father figure role for me because of how I grew up. My mom was that way before she passed. That was a little more dynamic. My mom was a little she was a little harder on me, so there were times when yeah I couldn't be as open and as free as I would have probably liked. But my aunt, I think everybody has that aunt that they love that is just you can do no wrong.
Yeah.
She's just cookies and muffins in the house and glass of milk and just it's just that aunt, man, who's just happy to see you and you can just open up with and just and just get everything that you need from a good supportive relationship. So I did. I was when I thought about it at first, I thought, no, I don't really think so. And then I started to really think, okay, yeah, outside of my immediate home, I did have access to my aunts and uncles who were always very supportive, and I would describe as being an open relationship with.
One of your uncles, and I'm sure that he's one of the three that you were talking about,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I admire is, if you don't mind, your uncle Felipe.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
is the coolest man that you're ever going to meet. This guy can swim without getting wet. When they did when they did that beer commercial about the most interesting man in the world,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
literally
yeah,
think about your uncle Felipe, man, and of
yeah,
course he's of Dominican heritage. Just the
yeah.
coolest dude, man. And still, I mean, he's still walking. The coolest
Yeah,
dude on
he
the
still
planet.
is yeah, he's a cool guy, and, you know, I often think back on our relationship and feel so sorry for him because, man, that guy had to hear me talk and talk and talk and talk, and I have to tell you, when I think back on, because I have a my youngest daughter is the exact replica of me. I mean, she never met a word she didn't like. She's much smarter than I am. She's much smarter, much more aware, socially and emotionally aware than I am. She's turning 7 in a couple of days. Uh, but man, when she starts talking, I just think to myself, "Oh my god, my poor uncle and all my uncles and aunts. Is this what they had to deal with? They just a nonstop, free flowing consciousness of words that just come out." So I always have to stop myself, and I enjoy my conversations with my daughter because we'll take a walk somewhere, and believe it or not, for me not to get a single word in is saying something. And it's actually quite refreshing that I can say, "Wow, I had an entire conversation with someone and I did not say a word. I actually listened." So, she's good for me for that.
Oh man, that is awesome. That is awesome. Let me ask you another question. How do your values fit with or differ from those in your family of origin? I've always found you to be a very principled person. So, how do your values fit with or differ from those in your family of origin?
Well, thank you for saying that. I I do believe that was very it's very interesting because I had some I grew up in a very human household.
Mhm.
Like we all did. I think growing up, you expect your parents to be perfect. My parents
Yeah.
clearly they were not. But they were principled. I mean, they did have a code and principles that they stood on. They believed in treating people well. They believed in helping when you could help. Um, Honesty. Uh, you know, keeping your word, being on time. Those kinds of things. I guess I don't know if those are necessarily values. They're kind of
No,
values to me.
no. Yeah.
Uh, but those were things I do know that I picked up from them. Uh, you know, try to follow through, finish what you start. You know, I'm not perfect in any of these areas, but these are things that I very distinctly remember either being spelled out or being modeled for me.
Yeah.
Uh, some of the things that my I've noticed though that my family, some of the family values when you talk about differing, uh, my family is far more committed to family than I am.
Okay.
Uh, and that really is because of the dysfunction in my immediate family. And I
Yeah.
guess maybe we'll talk a little bit about that earlier. But when my extended family, my uncles, my aunts, you know, they've been married for years. I mean, they've been married since I got my uncle and aunt. I think they just celebrated. I think I'm 47, 46. They're celebrating 40 something years of marriage because they had my cousin when my aunt was very young, I think 16, and they got married immediately before he was born, and they've been married ever since. And they have
Wow.
never, I mean, they've been married. Same thing with my two other uncles and aunts, married through thick. I mean, you know, they have stuck it out through thick and thin. But in my own family, you know, my mother and father divorced when I was a year old. My mother remarried, and my stepfather, and my mother's relationship was pretty challenging. They ended up divorcing by the time I was a teenager, and so there was a lot of it was a rocky path. And so I am more inclined to hit the eject button emotionally in a lot of ways, uh, and to distance myself. to kind of protect from as a protection way. So I am not as close to my extended family as I would really like to be, and as I probably should be.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the outside. They're very welcoming. No one loves me more. I know that, and it is actually a struggle for me a lot of times to do the simple things like visit, make calls, remember birthdays. All of that stuff is very challenging for me. I'm getting better as I get older, but that's where the values are I think are different. I have this whole family unit that are very close, ride or die, will you know, they're always there for each other, and I kinda
Yeah.
sit outside. And I think that that's a value that I would much rather I wish that I'd have had, but like I said, with my aunts and my uncles, they instilled that in their children because it was modeled for them, and so that carries on. You stick it out, you ride it out, it's family, that's all you've got, and they have that. For me, I missed that in my what is it, the nuclear family, I guess. I missed all of that
Yeah.
and just didn't, you know, just kind of had to figure it out on my own. And in that process was very distant from it. So that's, I think, where the values differ.
So that was a factual question, and I don't want you to answer this question, but I'm going to give an example real quick of how that factual answer you gave me. Now we can start talking a little bit about emotional process. So then,
Hmm.
one of the things that I would, explore with you would be how can you, or what are some things that you can do to improve keeping in contact with your family, and then we would
Yeah.
explore some things based on your reality and things of that nature. But though that's more of an emotional process question.
Right. Right.
How can I increase contact with my family, without seeming phony or fake? How could I, how could what are some things that I can do to invest or whatever it may be? And that's more emotional process questions. Let me let
Well,
me
can I,
let me
and I,
move
can I,
on.
I know you don't want me to answer that, and I'm not,
Yeah,
but I just want to say that coming to that, I was not expecting to even address that. So
yeah,
after we finish our conversation, that is exactly what I'm going to be doing, is thinking about, wow, I didn't even think about that, even though I had the questions. That whole part of that misalignment there about family, I wasn't even thinking about that. It just kind of spontaneously came up, and so it's made me think, okay, this is something I got to address. It's out there on the
right.
table, and I need to get on that because no one's getting any younger.
That's
So
exactly
I,
right.
I I need to, and like I said, and I'll say this, and then I'll let you go on. I mean, I'm in Singapore, so you know it's too easy to be distant, and
Exactly. Yeah.
I have to work on that. All right, okay,
Yeah.
let's continue.
Distance and responsibilities make it very easy in this generation for us. We no longer live in uh, communities where grandma, aunts, uncles, and everybody all live within a 1 mile radius. We're now
Yeah,
spread all over the country, spread all over the world, and then the increase in volume of busyness that we have in day to day life exacerbates that. So if there's not an intentionality, it's going to happen. I'm glad that you were candid about that. Can you think about an event or events in your early years that taught you about leading?
yeah, and let me try to be as brief as I can with this. So I grew up without in my immediate family. I always felt that I grew up not having much of a voice, in that I just wasn't heard. And if I pushed to be heard, it was pretty much suppressed. I come from that Gen X, generation where you were to be seen, children were to be seen, not to be heard, or something like that, right? I don't know I don't remember the thing, but I wasn't. So even in instances where I felt like I was, uh, you know, like I was falsely accused of something, or I was trying to, I wasn't given the benefit of the doubt. I had to be more vocal in order to be heard. So my early experience with leadership started with speaking up and trying to fight for others. I just kind of had this. I just had that sense that I needed to. If I didn't have a voice, I needed to help be a voice for others as well. So that's kind of where I started. with my experience with leadership. And I think the biggest expression of that started in high school. I helped to organize and lead this walkout for what we perceived as educational injustice, systemic failures in education, etc. So my foundation of approach has always been to who are the people that are not getting what they should be getting, and how can I help to
Mm.
speak up, for them. So
Yeah.
affected uh, that's always kind of affected how I've worked in within organizations, thinking about the people in the job above the shareholders and the profits per se. Seeing the connection that if the people are happy and if we're getting them what they need, the production will improve, the morale will improve, the loyalty will improve. All of these things will take care of themselves. But I've always been a worker first. How can we get the workers what they need first? How can we get the team what they need first? And then all of that other stuff will take care of it. So yeah, I'm the guy. I'm the guy. There was that scene in one of the Ocean's 8 movies or whatever, where those guys were supposed to go down to a factory in Mexico and they were supposed to load the dice to fix the game back in Vegas. And
Yeah.
they go down to this factory and they're supposed to be doing this, and they find themselves getting involved in an entire workers union riot, fighting for
Mm.
the workers and getting all sidetracked and caught up. I mean, they're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing one thing and they get caught up in that. So that's kind of how uh, you know, I think those are the events. And then going back kind of to not having a voice, I think I said it kind of hinted. I've grew up in what I can kind of only describe as a challenging family unit. One parent was an alcoholic, and the other was mentally ill with depression and schizophrenia. So compassion and concern for what happens in the lives of those that I lead, what is happening to them outside of work, is always important to me. So I've always felt like the work family is an extension of the family of origin. I've never believed in this idea that when you come to work, that the transaction is simple. You come to the job, I pay you, you leave your problems at the door, and you
Yeah.
do the work. I've always felt that people have stuff going on in their lives, and what I went through, even in middle school and in high school, it's almost a miracle, and I'm not alone in this. I know there are a lot of people out here, out in the world, who have
Yes.
experienced it. It's almost a miracle that I did not drop out of school, that I didn't end up in jail, that I didn't end up fathering half of the city. It's almost a miracle that that was not my path. I don't. I sometimes I do sit back in awe and wonder, how did I ever make it through to eventually become college educated and to become a stable member of society. So I I I feel I'm always thinking about what is going on. I feel like work has the responsibility of taking care of their employees and knowing what's going on. You're taking care of a sick
Right.
parent. Are you having a child with special needs? You're dealing with that. I need if you're going to be at work, I want you to be your best self, and I also want to help you. I think the organization should do whatever they can to help you in your home life situation, because people have stuff going on.
And we've discovered that unboxed leaders and unboxed organizations are the ones that are intentional about creating and fostering healthy workplace cultures, which you just described to a T. All right. Thank you so much, Raphael, for taking this time to share
My
with
pleasure.
us. And I know that everyone who watched this was blessed. I want to add, because we didn't get a chance to finish all of the questions during this part of the show, I want to encourage people. There will be some bonus footage that's going to come out where we're going to go through the rest of the questions with Rafael Soriano. I want to encourage you to make sure that you check out that bonus footage. I'm going to swap from the hot seat and turn it back over to Rafael, and he's going to take us home today.
All right, so thank you very much, Robert. That brings us to the end of our show today. The Unboxed broadcast is produced by Bobby Davis Jr., graphics and video design provided by Damon Mace, and marketing and promotion by John Sedano. Remember to visit our website at www.unboxedtolead.com. specifically also to check out the BIPOC Executive Director's scholarship page. For Dr. Robert Davis, I'm RP Soriano. We look forward to seeing you at the next broadcast of Unboxed as we help you unbox the power and potential of your leadership. Be well.
UnBoxed provides a full-service leaders peer support community that helps high-level leaders become more authentic leaders who build healthy workplace cultures and reach their personal life goals. To learn more and discover how we can take your leadership and your life to the next level, please visit our website at unboxedtolead.com. That's unboxed2lead.com. Again, that's unboxed2lead.com.